this country to live here, not to visit. And I got off the plane in Boston, and my then fiance went to get the car. And when he came back, I was chatting with some gentleman. He was getting loaded all my really Japanese van, and my husband said, never lose that accent.
Gave directions to staff.
Really, yeah. It has been useful.
Okay, we're late. Are you ready? 6:35, we're running behind. Call meeting to order. We met in closed session, gave direction to staff. Roll call, Councilman Dino is not here tonight. Councilwoman Burnett, Councilwoman Hargens, Councilman Valero, and myself. Please stand for pledge allegiance.
Salute the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we ask you to bless this meeting and bless our time together. Lead us to make good decisions for our town. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Proclamations or recognitions, appointments, and presentations. First one is proclamation January 2021, National Stalking Awareness Month. Maggie Michael, Empower Tehama Domestic Violence Victims Advocate, will be present to accept the proclamation.
Okay. Proclamation, January 2021. My glasses on, I apologize. Whereas under the laws of all 50 states, the U.S. territories, and the District of Columbia, and federal government, stalking is a crime. Whereas 6 to 7.5 million people are stalked in a one-year period in the United States, and the majority of victims are stalked by someone they know. And whereas 3 in 4 women killed by an intimate partner have been stalked by that intimate partner. Whereas many stalking victims lose time from work and experience serious psychological distress and lost productivity at a much higher rate than the general population. And whereas many stalking victims are forced to protect themselves by relocating, changing their identities, changing jobs, and obtaining protection orders. Whereas many stalkers use technology such as cell phones, global positioning systems, GPS, cameras, spyware to monitor and track their victims. Whereas criminal justice systems can enhance the responses to stalking by regular training and assertive investigation and prosecution of the crime. Whereas laws and public policies must continually be adapted to keep pace with new tactics used by stalkers. And whereas communities can better combat stalking by adopting multidisciplinary responses by teams of local agencies and organizations, and by providing more and better victim services. Whereas the Empower Tehama is joining forces with victim service providers, criminal justice officials, and concerned citizens throughout Tehama County in the United States to observe National Stalking Awareness Month. Now, therefore be it resolved that I, Robert Snow, as Mayor of the City of Corning, do hereby proclaim January 2021 as Stalking Awareness Month in the City of Corning. I applaud the efforts of the many victim service providers and encourage all citizens to become more informed of this growing problem, to be vigilant and report suspicious activity, and to work towards solutions to ending stalking in all its forms in our community.
You know, I would like to say just one thing. I've been doing this job for 100 years now, it feels like. And one of the things that I'm always shocked about is when I find clients who have been stalked, I say, where do you go? Where did you go? And they always say, well, I just kept driving. I just didn't know where to go. And I point out to them that there is a police station. There is to drive to a police station, to drive to a fire department and start honking your horn. People come out. And abusers tend not to keep following. But our clients will drive 80, 90 miles going on back roads where it's incredibly dangerous while they're being stalked. And the hardest thing is, it's so hard for the police. Because if I tell you, somebody followed me here from Richfield tonight, you're going to say, well, did you get a license number, do you know who it was? And I'll say, no, I just know it was him. And so we teach our clients how to keep a record, how to keep a log, how to take pictures. I had a client tell me, I can't take a picture of my abuser while he's following me in the car. I'm not allowed to use my phone. I said, that ticket might be better than being dead. Take the picture. So we try very hard to educate the community, but educate your friends. If you know somebody who's being stalked, we have a lot of things that we can help them to make sure that they can prosecute that case. Because when the DA gets to prosecute them, they love them. That's a good thing. Did you have another one, or is it?
Yep, we got one more, and then I'll bring both these to you.
Yeah.
All right, the second proclamation, January 2021, Human Trafficking Prevention Awareness Month. Maggie Michael, Empower Tehama Domestic Violence Victims Advocate, will be present to accept the proclamation.
Proclamation, January 2021, Human Trafficking Prevention Awareness Month. Whereas the United States was founded upon the principles that all people are created with the inalienable right to freedom, and the 13th Amendment to the Constitution makes slavery illegal. Whereas human trafficking is modern-day slavery, claiming nearly 40 million victims worldwide and found in the United States most often in the form of sexual exploitation, forced labor, involuntary servitude, and debt bondage. And whereas the horrific crime denies human dignity and freedom, fuels organized crime, and exists in our nation, our state, and our own community. Whereas although awareness of this crime is growing, human trafficking continues to go unreported due to its isolating nature, misunderstanding of its definition, and the lack of awareness about indicators. Whereas increased community education on how to identify victims of human trafficking, as well as knowledge of available resources and services for those affected by this crime can help to restore freedom and dignity to survivors and diminish the number of future victims. Whereas every business, community, organization, faith community, family, and individual can make a difference by choosing products not made by forced labor, working to protect our young people from sexual exploitation, addressing the problem of internet sex trafficking and pornography, and by acknowledging the problem and working towards solutions. Whereas the City of Corning joins Empower Tehama in their dedication to providing community outreach and education, legislative advocacy, training, promotion of services to survivors of human trafficking, and collaboration with law enforcement. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Robert Snow, as Mayor of the City of Corning, do hereby proclaim January 2021 as Human Trafficking Prevention Month in the City of Corning. I encourage all citizens to become more informed of this growing problem, to be vigilant and report suspicious activity, and to work towards solutions to end trafficking in all its forms in our community. If you observe behavior that indicates possible human trafficking, contact the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 888-373-7888.
Again, it's a crime that is difficult, particularly because victims of trafficking often don't want to admit they're victims of trafficking. And they don't see themselves as victims, and it's really hard to keep them safe. And we're working on this, but it's just very difficult. But I want to thank you for having these two declarations today and being involved and caring about your citizens who are being affected by this. Do you want to do the hug? Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Item number 3 will be a COVID-19 update. Short and sweet. By City Manager.
As you all are very well aware, cases are continuing to increase in Sonoma County. On a positive note, vaccines are starting to be distributed, and I do anticipate that government organizations will begin to be distributed vaccinations other than law enforcement and first responders, beginning as soon as January 19th. There will also be a rollout to ag manufacturing here shortly that will actually be for governmental employees and other that Bell Carter is the major company in Corning that would pertain to ag manufacturing, and I do know that they are eagerly hoping that their employees will choose to get vaccinated. With that, please social distance, wear a mask, and be as safe as possible in this community, because we are seeing community spread quite frequently now. And I'll leave it at that.
All righty, we've already gone public comments and business from the floor. Is anybody from the audience that would like to speak on an item that is not on the agenda tonight? Yep.
So, I just wanted to give an update on the wastewater treatment plant transfer switch. The information went out in Friday notes that during the power outage on Monday, the transfer switch at the wastewater treatment plant that transitions power from PG&E to the generator, from the generator back to PG&E, keeping the plant operational, burned up during the switch on Monday. Unfortunately, we had a second power outage last Wednesday that we then were not operational. The electrician and two electricians met at the site today. We have located a permanent transfer switch, and we are, but it is 14 to 16 weeks out before we can get it here and installed. We have another solution to install a manual transfer switch to get us through that portion. So we'll be working with the electricians to get that up, hopefully by mid next week. At least get it so power does go out, the plant operator can be at site within 30 minutes and make the transition over to be able to keep us up and operational, and where we won't have to be renting a pump for 16 weeks plus to keep on site just in case of emergency. So I will get the numbers, and working on those right now, the costs for this equipment. I'll get that out to everyone just for information in the next couple days.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on something that's not on the agenda? We will move on to the consent agenda. It is recommended that items listed on the consent agenda be acted on simultaneously unless a council member or members of the audience request separate discussion and/or action. Item number 4 is waive the reading except by title of any ordinance under consideration at this meeting for either introduction or passage per Government Code Section 36934. 5 is waive the reading and approve the minutes of the following meetings with any necessary corrections. A, December 8, 2020 City Council meeting. B is December 15th, 2020 special City Council meeting. And number 6, January 6, 2020 claim warrant in the amount of $245,991.24. Item 7, January 6, 2021 business license report. Item 8, December 2020 wages and salaries, $508,959.04. Item 9 is December 2020 treasurer report. Item 10, December 2020 building permit valuation report in the amount of $309,303. Item 11, December 2020 City of Corning wastewater operations summary report. And item number 12, clarification of JPA representative for 2021. Anybody have anything that they'd like pulled or discussed? If not, do I have a motion?
I move we accept consent agenda items 4 through 12, please.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So passed, unanimous. No items removed from the consent agenda. Public hearings and meetings, there are none, so we were on to the regular agenda. Ordinance 695, an ordinance amending chapters 8.08 and 8.14 and 8.25 to Title 8 of the Corning Municipal Code, creating a nuisance abatement process. First reading and introduction. And that would be Paul?
So good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. So what we're seeking to do here is to clean up the nuisance abatement process for the City of Corning. And this is something that's been in the works for quite a while now. I've received feedback from fire, police, planning, public works, as well as the city manager and the city clerk. So even though I'm the one presenting this tonight, this has certainly been a team effort. As indicated, this really is a cleanup of the nuisance abatement process. As it stands right now, it's a bit of a mess. We've got it in 3 different sections. We have chapter 8.08, which provides definitions for what constitutes nuisances, but does not lay out an actual process for the abatement by the owner or the city. We've got chapter 8.14, which does lay out a process, but it only pertains to weeds. It doesn't pertain to items like substandard buildings, hazardous waste, things like that. And then lastly, we have chapter 8.25, which indicates that it's supposed to be a nuisance abatement, but only actually lays out administrative and criminal citations. So what we're doing here is we're completely getting rid of 8.14, pertaining to weed abatement. We're getting rid of 8.08, and we're removing sections of 8.25 that refer to nuisance abatement, and we're creating an entirely new 8.08, which lays out a very clear process for both property owners and the city for how we get these nuisances abated and what constitutes a nuisance. So, it's a lengthy ordinance, so I will kind of break it down into 3 sections that it really makes up. The first part is it defines what a nuisance is. So that is including substandard buildings, that's including weeds, rubbish, that includes hazardous waste, zoning violations of our marijuana code, essentially anything that constitutes a nuisance under the law, we've included as a nuisance under our code. So any member of the public, any of the council members that want to determine what is a nuisance, they can look right to that section, and it's not going to be something where they have to look at multiple parts of our code to find out what it actually means. The second part of this code that we're implementing is an actual process for the abatement. The way it works is this. Once it's determined that there is an actual nuisance, a notice goes out to the property owner and any people that are in possession, renters, leasers, anything like that, providing them notice of a hearing date. At that hearing date, there'll be a hearing officer that will hear from both the property owner, if they attend, and the city, as to whether or not there's a nuisance on the property. They will then make a decision, and the owner will have a certain period of time to abate that, to correct it. If it's trash on the property, they pick it up. If it's a substandard building, they have to go out and get a permit and correct whatever the building issue is, but they'll have a certain period of time to do that. If they don't do it within that time frame, the city will then move forward and abate it. So we don't just have a process where an irresponsible property owner is told to do something, they don't do it, and we just have to live with it as community members and staff here at the city. So the city can actually get in, they can perform the abatement work, and then clean up the property. The last stage of this ordinance is recovery of costs by the city. Whenever we have these abatements issues, the city incurs a lot of costs in cleaning them up. This provides us an avenue to actually recover those costs through what's called a special assessment. Now, a special assessment is basically treated like a property tax lien, where if the property, it's a lien, essentially a lien on the property, but if the property's sold, it's not extinguished, and it's paid off just like your property taxes in your annual installments. So the way that it works for this special assessment is an invoice is sent to the property owner after abatement. They have 30 days to pay it off. If they don't pay it off within that 30 days, then it becomes a special assessment, which is recorded with the county. That way the city can ensure that they get repayment of the cost they spent. So there's some other nuts and bolts to it, which I'd be happy to get into, but that's the general overall way that it's going to work. And really it's going to make it a much clearer process for city staff moving forward. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
I'm just really excited it's going to go smoother and quicker, because the old process is ridiculous, having to bring it back to council twice and, all that.
Yeah, you're right. The weed abatement one right now requires us 2 separate times to bring it back to the city council, to have a hearing on it, and to make that determination. This gets rid of that. The only time it would come to council is a hearing officer makes a decision, and that person appeals that decision, then it would come to city council. But frankly, a lot of these times we don't have anyone show up for the city council hearing, so we hold these things. So that would then be handled through a hearing officer instead.
I'm with Karen. It streamlines the process. It gives you guys the authority to move forward without coming back to us 2-3 times sometimes. I like the way it's written. It gets rid of a lot of the garbage, and it's very clear cut.
Can you explain how it addresses noise?
Oh, that's right. So a few weeks ago, we did discuss in here the issue of noise, when there have been some complaints. We did include that in the language of nuisance. The way it's defined is just a highly unreasonable noise is determined to be a nuisance in this. The issue we have with something like noise is we really can't set it at a certain decibel. It's not feasible to have our law enforcement, enforce something like that. So what we're, deeming it as an unreasonable noise. So if there's multiple complaints, law enforcement will go out, they determine it to be unreasonable, then it will be determined to be a nuisance, and it can be an administrative or a criminal citation.
So it's up to the officers to determine whether the noise is unreasonable or not?
Correct.
Do you have any further comments on that, Mr. Fierce, Chief Fierce?
No, I'm reading the ordinance now. Is what it is.
Well, I know that was part of it that I did see in there. I'm glad to see it added because it's been an ongoing issue for years. We've never, a noise ordinance by itself is very difficult to come up with one that is not used as a tool to attack your neighbors. But I think being put in this as a nuisance, like you say, multiple reports, officer comes out, yeah, you guys have a mariachi band, or you have your drum set in your garage, and it's 11 o'clock at night, and your neighbor's got to sleep, and it's Tuesday. That's unreasonable. So I think it'll be a good way to start, and we'll see how it works, and if it's something that we have to address down the road, then we can readdress it, but, at least we're taking a step forward with it.
And there is a state code that I know that I talked to the police chief about before that's still in effect. They can use that as well.
Mhm.
It's just another option that they can utilize.
Yeah.
It may not make everybody happy, but we're going to use our best judgment.
Yeah. And that's all you can do.
And I will say that, in fact, we have received complaints before that, on both sides. We receive complaints all the time of, unreasonable noise, but we also get the neighbor that doesn't like its neighbor, and it's not a legitimate complaint. It does take a bit of discretion of the police department, but we can have those conversations internally.
Yeah.
Respect them.
All right. Anybody have anything else? If not, do I have a motion?
I make a motion that Mayor and Council by motion introduce the first reading ordinance 695, an ordinance of the City of Corning amending chapters 8.08, 8.14, and 8.25 to Title 8 of the Corning Municipal Code, revising the nuisance abatement process, approve summary ordinance 695 for publication purposes, and direct the city clerk to read the ordinance by title only.
Have a second?
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Real quick, now that you've done the first reading and the intro, do you just, next time it's just the second reading and vote, you don't have to do a public hearing?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are only specific ordinances that require a public hearing. Typically, those are with zoning, development agreements, things like that. They require public hearings, but when outside of that arena, there is no public hearing required. But there will be a second reading at the next meeting for this ordinance.
Great, thank you.
All righty.
Does it have to be read by title?
It does, yeah, please.
Ordinance 695, an ordinance amending chapters 8.08, 8.0, 8.14, and 8.25 to Title 8 of the Corning Municipal Code, creating a nuisance abatement process.
All right, we'll move on to the next item, item 14. Approve agreement with the Pascagoula Band and Omalaki Indians for the city to provide independent contractor services to the tribe for the implementation of the Corning Recreation Program. That would be...
That's me. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm really pleased to announce that the city is in receipt of a fourth year of funding for our recreation program. This does offset any general fund costs the city would incur to run the recreation program. And so with that, I'm very happy and pleased that we are the recipient of one final year's worth of funding. So I'm going to say this. I know for certain that this is our last year of being funded because it's the last year of the Promised Neighborhood Grant. And so unless the tribe somehow pulls another grant out of their hat, this is absolutely the last year we will be funded through the grant for the rec program. After that point, it will become a general fund expense.
But well worth it.
Well,
Totally worth it.
Yep.
I don't care if the general fund has to pay for it. It is so many good things for our children in this town. Sorry.
No, I agree with that sentiment. Anybody have any questions or comments besides? Anybody from the audience? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that mayor and city council approve agreement for the city to provide independent contractor services to the Pascana Band of Nomawaki Indians as related to the awarded United States Department of Education grant, PR award number U211560003-16B in the amount of $75,000 and authorize the city manager to sign all associated documents.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Pass unanimous. And moving on to item number 15. Authorized payment for invoice 20-206658-2 in the amount of $27,938.50 under task order A to Armstrong Consultants Incorporated. And that would be
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, staff is requesting council to authorize the payment of, this is invoice number 2, under task order A to Armstrong. It was for their construction management services for the airport fence project, which is almost done with the exception of the LS-6 that we're currently waiting for delivery. Good news is I've already received acceptance of reimbursement from the grant funding source. So that money is totally in our account today.
okay. So this is grant money that we're
100% grant funded.
okay. Well, it's nice to see it done. I did go out and look at it last weekend. And besides the gate, what a difference getting rid of that old junky field fence around the airport and putting up a nice fence. I mean, it's just little things, but it does dress up the outside of the airport. Anybody else have any comments or questions for this?
I talked to Louis Davies today, and he said that, everybody knows that the west side isn't fenced with this project. Is there any plans to try to get that side fenced?
I don't think at this time there is.
As of right now, there is not. We asked about including that portion in the project, and the FAA guidelines for fencing right now is only adjacent to public driveways.
Thank you.
If there's no further questions or comments, so I have a motion.
Not yet.
I make a motion the mayor and council authorize payment for invoice 20-206658-2 in the amount of $27,938.50 under task order A to Armstrong Consultants Incorporated.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
Go ahead.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So passed unanimous. All right, item number 16, approved construction payment request number 1 in the amount of $153,984 to Aero Fencing for the 2020 Corning Airport Fence Project.
This request is to pay the contractor for the materials and their installation costs in the amount of $153,984, less the 10% retention. I am aware that 10% retention is more than what we normally hold, but it is a requirement of the FAA to hold that much. And that amount being held is $15,398.40 for a total payment of $138,585.60 to Aerofence. All work has been inspected by Armstrong and city staff, and it is complete.
Is this company the company installing the gate?
Yes.
And when will that be completed?
Right now, it's anticipated that the gate will be installed by the end of the week of January 25th. We have received notice that the gate has shipped and should be at Aerofence's yard in Montana this next week. So they, as soon as they get the fence, they will be here within 2 days to install, and we will be complete.
So my question is, we pay this, does that retention cover the cost of the gate if something was to happen?
They have not charged us for the gate.
Okay, so that has not been billed. This is not a final payment?
No,
Okay.
this is just the first initial payment of work.
Okay, I feel better. All right, does anybody have any questions or comments? I have a motion.
I make a motion to approve construction payment request number 1 in the amount of $153,984, less the 10% retention of $15,398.40, and issue payment in the amount of $138,585.60 from account 62-9195-3500 to Aerofencing for the 2020 Corning Airport Fence Project.
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So it passed unanimous. All right, items placed on the agenda from the floor, there are none. Communications, correspondence, and information? None. Reports from mayor and council members. Mr. Demo's absent. Karen, do you have anything?
No, not today.
Chewy?
I do not.
I don't.
Except you're back at work and your business is open?
We're back at work and business is open. We had a great day. Great day. Everybody really came out and
And we're glad to see you
showed
back.
us the love. If I could survive the week, it'll be great. I will. But thank you.
I have nothing. I do have a quick question, and maybe should have addressed this earlier. Going back to our consent agenda, clarification of the JPA representative. We never addressed that. Has there been clarification on that?
Well, that's what you decided in approving, that as part of the consent.
Okay.
That approved.
It approved what was in that, okay. All right, that's all I had then. If there's nothing else from any of the members of the fine audience that attended tonight, meeting adjourned. I guess my question on that was because it never stated that.